intervention. So for like what we did our slideshow presentation on last week. So maybe let's, I think some of us works together. I don't know if the other two of you were partnership. So um, I can go first and share what we did, and then if you guys have other thoughts or whatever, that's perfect. So we did childhood obesity for ages 6 to 11. Um, and you guys already know what obesity is, I'm sure, so I'm not going to go over that. Let's see here. The main issues, it's all pretty obvious. Just health-related risks that come up, and then socially, um, that can be problems as if a kid is overweight or obese. That can interfere with their daily life and interactions at school and stuff. So the intervention that we talked about were like medical options, taking weight loss medication and stuff, which is, from what I read, hardly ever happens for children that young, but it's an option, or weight loss surgery. But the more common ones are just normal dieting, eating healthier, exercising more regularly, making it a family matter, getting everyone involved so that the child doesn't feel excluded or singled out. Yeah, so maybe my other group members can share other things they learned, but it was pretty simple, just obvious implications, and I mean, along with weight loss and stuff. So that's what we did.
Okay, can I talk? I don't know if like, are we allowed to like say like some of the intervention stuff right now? Or is that like another time in the group meeting?
No, yeah, anything about
Oh,
the slideshow or the physical domain or intervention is perfect. That's great.
okay. So basically, like, first off, children don't know how to feed themselves. They eat what adults place in front of them. I just took some like bullet point notes of what I was learning. Second, children are faced with what used to be adult onset diseases, like such as type 2 diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, high triglycerides, metabolic syndrome. These were all things that were done, or like I said, adult onset diseases that children are having now. Thirdly, children do not have nearly enough physical activity in their lives. Things are a lot different now since the technology age has come about. Kids are indoor like almost twice as much as they were any other time. Fourthly, the only solution to the obesity problem is educating the adults that are responsible for the care and nurture of the children. Um, I think it's pretty across the board where it kind of falls into the parents' hands if a young child is overweight. Adult, not so much, but for children, yeah. Um, Parents are the solution. Um, if like the parents would just take like if all of us just took this message and put this as like a healthy foundation for our own children, that's like kind of how things can just expand and to solve it. But there's really nothing the government can do. That's all I have.
I think one of the things that I really liked a lot that, I mean, not that I didn't know this already, but that it focused on a lot was that, like you guys said, like it talks about how kind of the parents are the key here. Um, I liked how it cautioned parents in the way that they handle this, like how to handle the obesity in their kids and whatever else. I liked how they kind of caution them to make sure that they do it in a way that's going to be beneficial for them and not stress so much. Not necessarily stress much their weight, because obviously that's what the issue is at the moment, their health. But I liked how it talks about how making sure that the issue is they talk to them about their health and the way that their body works and runs functionally and all that kind of stuff. Because especially for girls and even for guys nowadays too, is there's so much hype about being thin and looking a certain way and things like that, and that's not the main concern with obesity. It's your health. It's everything else is not just because you need to look good in a bathing suit or and I think there's so much in the media and all that kind of stuff about why you should exercise so you can look good in your bathing suit. Okay, well that's not, and that's a benefit I guess, but that's not the main reason why we should be watching what we eat and taking care of our bodies. So I liked how it kind of set the focus on what is the real concern, a real issue, instead of, oh, let's just make sure that you're in weight so you're not getting teased at school because you're fat, which, well, yes, that's a bonus too, but it's, so that you have a healthy life and can do the things that kids and adults are supposed to be doing. So I think for me that's kind of what I really like, is that they set the focus on that, not necessarily like their looks, but on their overall health. For me, that was kind of, I don't know, I liked that the most when it came to the presentation. But anyway.
Yeah, so I worked with Khalees. Oh, there she is. And we also did obesity, and we talked about some of the challenges that we could, how to overcome them. And something that we decided was that to eat healthy takes a lot of time and it takes a lot of money, and that's why a lot of people don't do it, because it's easier to just pick something up really quick at McDonald's or whatever, especially when you have kids and it's busy. So something we thought of that we could do to implement eating healthy was freezer meals. It's like super big right now. It's all over Pinterest. And you take a couple hours on a Sunday or on a Monday, and you can freeze all these healthy meals and put them in the freezer, and then all you have to do is pop them in the oven, and they're still healthy. And also, I think just feeding your kids healthy things. Like I saw this thing on Facebook that was for mac and cheese, but it had like pureed vegetables in it, and the kids didn't even notice. So I think like making comfort food, but in a way that's nutritious, will like help them eat it and enjoy eating it. So that's just something that we did. I don't know if you want to add anything, please. But
can you guys hear me? Okay. I've been having major computer problems. I switched like 3 different computers. We finally got it on, so we're here. No, honestly, that's exactly what I was going to talk about. And also just teaching nutrition, because I feel like I have a sister that's a dietitian, and talking with her especially, that kids just don't even know how to eat well because everything's convenience foods right now. So that was another thing we talked about, is just actually educating the children on what is good to eat, and the pyramid that we all learned when we were little. But I just don't think, my kids didn't really know about it when I asked them about it, so I just think talking to them and making sure that they understand what's good and what's bad, and why we don't want to have cake for breakfast and all that stuff. So, those are.
Awesome. Okay, so the next thing is the social and emotional research that we did. So we were all supposed to find 2 credible sources this week on whatever we chose to research that was the social and emotional domain. So for mine, I did the social impact that hearing loss has on children. And I did this just because my little girl has a hearing loss, and it's one of the things I think about. But I found 2 different articles. The first one was called Principles and Guidelines for Early Hearing Detection and Intervention Programs. And it just talks about how hearing loss can affect people with their communication, their cognitive development, their behavior, and their social and emotional development, as well as academic outcomes. So this program is called the Early Hearing Detection and Intervention. They refer to it as EHDI. And what they've started doing, in some states it's now required that there's a newborn hearing screening. And I'm really grateful for this, because if it wasn't required in Utah, we wouldn't even know about our little girl's hearing loss, or if it was a few years ago. And so that's one thing that helps. One way to intervene is to be able to find out sooner. They're very first born, a lot of times in the hospital before they even leave, they'll do a hearing test. And then if they fail, then they'll have to go back within a certain amount of time, like a few months, to see if they still fail, because a lot of times when they're born they have fluid in their ears, and that causes them to fail the test, even if their ears are structurally working and everything. So Then, after they are diagnosed with the hearing loss, then there's different intervention programs. We're working with people from Davis Early Intervention, just the county that we're in. And they come to our house every month just to monitor Emily, my daughter, and just to make sure she's developing speech or all of her sounds correctly. So a big thing with hearing loss when they're really little is just to watch their progress, and if there is a big issue, then then you intervene more. But as long as you're watching it and continually checking their hearing to see if they're losing more or if there's risks of losing more, then you can be aware of the severity and what you need to do. Of course, there's all the different things like hearing aids or cochlear implants, different options with technology that's always improving. So we have a hearing aid, and that works depending on how severe the hearing loss is. And then just helping the family learn about the hearing loss and making sure that if the child is having speech and language delays, talking about the social or emotional domain, they're going to have problems socially if they can't communicate, or if they can't hear, or if they don't understand, or if they're in a loud situation or in a school classroom and there's a lot of background noise going on. It's really hard for them to hear the teacher, and so then they're going to start being behind cognitively. That's going to put them at a different level than their peers. So it's just kind of a ripple effect of how the hearing loss can affect them. And but most of all, socially, is just the communication factor. If they can't hear, or if they have to sign, or if if that, then it's difficult to communicate or learn social cues. And I think that's basically all that my two articles covered. So,
can I say something about that real quick?
Mm-hmm.
It's really interesting too, because there's a kid that we work with, and he's 2 now, but he was in my class because I work like more so 1-year-olds, but a little bit of the 2-year-olds, but they kind of move up to the next classroom a little after they turn 2. We had a boy who seemed like he was behind everybody else, and so a lot of times this will kind of tell parents, okay, you might want to get them tested, whatever else kind of a thing, because a lot of, like you were saying, a lot of the stuff, if you catch it early on, it can be helped and make it so it's not a problem as they get older. But there's this little boy we finally got, as we got him to move up to the other classroom, and the other teachers talked to this boy's parents again, and they finally went him in and had him tested, and the doctor did say that he was having some hearing problems, and for him, this little boy sounded like, or for him, it sounded like he was underwater. So everything was muffled and sounded weird, and so he was behind in everything because he was hearing things wrong, or wasn't hearing things. And so, this boy never really interacts with the kids. The kids don't really come to him because it's like he never responds to any of the kids. And so it's all those things that you were kind of talking about. It's kind of interesting because I was seeing all those things in this little boy, and it's sad because for a while their parents was kind of just ignoring the problem, and you could see that the more that they ignored it and didn't get it taken care of, the more the problem kind of progressed, instead of if they just kind of wait to get things handled, things would have been a whole lot easier for him. But anyway, so it's just kind of interesting because as you talked about, I could easily see all these things in this little boy that we deal with every day. So it's kind of interesting. I might as well go since I'm already blabbing my mouth as usual. Stop me if I go too long, okay, guys? I won't be offended. Okay, so the one that I'm talking about is anger. I kind of focused a little bit more on like 6 to 11-year-olds, but I touched a little bit on younger children too. So when it comes to like intervention, especially when they're younger, I guess the best thing you can do, first off, is a lot of the articles I was reading about kind of referred to their type of parenting skills. First off, because some of the anger issues that kids have is partly because they're learning how to handle all their emotions, their feelings, their body's changing and growing, and so they have to learn how to handle and control all these emotions and feelings that they're having that they may not have, fully understood when they were younger or felt when they were younger. And they talked about a lot of like parenting and how different types of parenting can either increase anger or kind of help children learn how to deal with their feelings, so that whenever they're feeling upset or angry about something, they can learn how to communicate better instead of throwing their fits and hitting something or hitting someone, kind of a thing. One of the articles I read about, it was called The Comfort Corner, and it talked about how to foster resiliency and emotional intelligence. This article dealt with, at the beginning, a lot with like younger kids and teaching them how to come together with other kids their age, and kind of like being able to share their thoughts and their feelings about anything, basically, and to kind of teach the kids how to talk about what they're dealing with, and like if a kid hit them or something, they would ask, well, how'd that make you feel, that kind of stuff. So it would kind of help them recognize what their thoughts and feelings were, and then be able to express them so that others knew, and so that the adult in charge kind of thing knew what was going on and how they can help them. And basically, it was kind of a way to teach. It started out with younger kids, but they worked with older kids as well, to just kind of like how to teach them how to manage their feelings and let others know what was going on so that they could address the issue before it became something bigger. And as there was one of the moms talked about the difference in her kid after they kind of went through this comfort corner type strategy, and how her kid, now that he's kind of learned how to do this, will come to her and say, XYZ, this is why I'm angry, and then the mom can work with him from there, kind of a thing, instead of having him go into his room, slam the door, and start throwing things around. Instead, he's able to express to his mom why he's mad, kind of a thing. And so it just kind of was interesting. And then another article I read was in the Parenting magazine, and it kind of gave 5 intervention or 5 things you can do to kind of help your child deal with anger. So one of them was have them run around the living room. It says 50 times, but it doesn't. You don't have to count. But have them run around the living room. They'll be in a contained space. The counting will distract them, and they'll kind of tire themselves out. So have them like run around and kind of count. I guess it basically is a way to kind of like it said, to distract them and get them off of the things that they're angry with. The second was go into a closed area and yell at the top of their lungs. This gives them a safe place to vent without freaking out on younger siblings or other people around them, people or things. The third one was karate chop a big piece of wrapping paper. It produces a satisfying ripping noise and makes them feel powerful. Go outside and make faces at you through the window is another one. Run around the house and repeat after a few times. This is likely to dissolve into a giggling fit. So kind of chase each other and kind of get their mind off of it again, I guess. And another one was throw dirt at a tree. They'll get messy, but it can't hurt anything. I thought that one was kind of funny. But some of these I did like, but I wish they kind of addressed more what the other article I talked about did, where it talks about teaching them how to address their feelings and work through the emotions that they're feeling, so that as they do get older and other issues come along, and as they will in life, that they'll be able to kind of recognize their feelings and why they're feeling the way that they're feeling, and then how to then go forward and handle those feelings instead of handling them by hitting others or throwing things, kind of a thing. So that was kind of the ones that I researched in the article. But yeah.
Okay, I'll go. So the one that I chose to do was self-esteem, and I focused more on like 6 to 11-year-olds because I feel like little kids don't really know what that means yet. But I found this really great website called Empowering Parents that have a million different articles about different issues and risks that could happen. So it's a really good source. And they talked about how low self-esteem stems from starting new tasks or doing something that they don't know how to do and getting frustrated that it doesn't work out. And so they simply put this, they put, if your child is able to deal with things, if they have support and they learn how to solve life problems, their sense of self-esteem grows. If they don't know how to manage this, their self-esteem diminishes, in fact, doesn't develop the way it should. So as a parent, how do you help this quality develop in your kids? And they talked about that kids develop self-esteem by doing things that are hard for them, but being able to accomplish something. So it can't be too hard, but it can't be too easy. And they gave an example about how her son was learning to tie his shoes, and when he finally learned how to do it, they were proud of him and praised him for it. But then as he kept doing it, like as soon as he did it twice or 3 times, they stopped praising him for it because it wasn't relevant anymore. So it wasn't challenging him enough to grow. It was more of just like giving him praise to give him praise, which really, it doesn't help build self-esteem. It just kind of halts it at a stopping point. So they said if you're rewarding your kids for things that are artificial, you have to understand that their self-esteem is going to be artificial and it's not going to be genuine. So you need to reward them for things that are actually genuine. So every time your kid colors a picture, you shouldn't be like, oh my gosh, that's the best picture that you've ever colored and you're an amazing artist and stuff like that. We should always be looking for ways to help them improve and to be better, and give them real advice and real compliments that aren't just, oh, you're so awesome, like on the surface. They also talked about some other things that you could do. A lot of times children don't know how to don't understand what they're feeling because it's new to them, kind of like with the whole anger thing. You need to get to the root of a problem. And in one of my other classes, we talked about how a lot of times people will say, oh, I feel like a loser, I feel fat, or I feel all these different things, and really those feeling fat or feeling like a loser are not feelings. And so you need to define the real problem. You need to find out what are they really dealing with. And a lot of times self-esteem issues could be like, oh, I don't have any friends at school, or I am not doing well in this subject, and so it makes me feel left out or something like that. So defining the problem, getting to the root of the issue can help them understand how to deal with this appropriately instead of just blaming themselves and pointing them as a victim. And then another thing that they said to do is to help, in order to solve new issues, they can pull from the skills that they already have. So sometimes they get overwhelmed because they feel like they don't have the skills to overcome something difficult that they've never experienced before. But instead of just being like, okay, well, you need to do this, you can be like, well, you've done this before, and this is kind of like what you can use to do, and these are the things that you're good at. Let's try using what you already have to overcome this issue. And then the last thing that they talked about is have limits, and I think that's really important. It talked about how a lot of kids who have anger issues or just like are defiant usually don't have limits, and their parents waver when sometimes their kids are sad or upset. And I think it's one thing to understand your kids when they're sad or upset, and then it's another thing to just be like, oh, you're so sad, so you never have to do your chores again or something like that. So setting limits and letting them know that life is difficult, but you can overcome it will help them develop better self-esteem. So those are just a few of the things that I got from my research.
I'll go next. I did mine on anxiety, and I kind of chose this topic because I have a niece that is 9 and struggling with this a lot. And so a couple of the articles I was reading, a lot of them were talking about separation anxiety, which, is defined as, having a hard transition maybe into school, not wanting to be away from parents, but having also thoughts that outrageous things are going to happen to your family while you're away from them or something like that. And so a couple of articles were talking about distracting them, and also, just like was just said, telling them that they have done something like this before, so they can take the next step, and having open lines of communication with them so that they can say, I'm feeling scared about this, but this is what I think is going to happen. And also, one of the articles actually, it was a really recent article and actually referred to that movie, the Inside Out movie, that's talking about the anxiety and stuff. And, when they're saying, okay, tell me all the possible things that could happen today on the first day of school, and then we'll try to prepare for them. So it's kind of talking about that, sitting down with the child and working through, not trying to feed into their anxiety, but just trying to help them understand what they're feeling. And, maybe I go to school and I get called on. It's okay. You can take a deep breath and you can answer when the teacher calls your name or something like that. So kind of working through those problems. So there's a lot of talk about that. And also it talked a lot about distractions, like it talked about TV and video games and stuff like that. And I don't know how much I agree with that, because I feel like we should talk about things, not just try to distract them. But they said that especially when there's been some dysfunction in the family or something traumatic that happens, that having these distractions can actually get them to kind of reset. And so they can get over that anxiety and they can forget about it for a little while, and then you can go back and talk to them about it. I've also talked a lot about, because I was kind of researching kind of middle childhood, and so I was talking about schools and how teachers, of course, they're kind of the front line sometimes, because they kind of get the brunt of it because the parent isn't with these older kids all day. But how the teachers can get involved and they can be aware of the needs, and they can try to do things and have comfortable settings and group settings that, that are more comfortable for these children that maybe have some anxiety. I also read an article, and it has this program. It's called Fun Friends, and so they have these groups that get together and they meet and they talk about the anxiety that all the kids are having. So there's like 10-week sessions, and they go and they talk about things, and it's actually really helpful for them because they can talk to kids that are their age that are going through the same things, and so it's less stressful. And there's all these facts on how much it has improved the resiliency for these children, and it's reduced their stress levels and things like that. So I think the main thing I learned from all the articles is just to be able to talk to the kids and help them understand, yeah, they're still going to have fears, but that you need to talk to them about it and work through it with them. So, short and sweet.
Okay. Mallory, did you want to share? Or
I'm good to go. I was trying to find all my stuff. Okay. So I did one like my topic was about children wanting independence from their parents, and how this causes like from the 8 to 10-year-old specifically range, but obviously it was a 6 to 11. How it causes rebellion in the parent-child relationship. So basically, like when I was talking to their parents, like it was just like there was like the child had a desire for increased independence from their parents and siblings, and their increased desire is to be seen as intelligent and knowledgeable. And I did like a lot of research on this, and I was just seeing that, like, I was reading over and over again that they're struggling to like find a way to see them, like for us to see them as appropriately like that they're smart, that they know what they're talking about without being defiant, but it comes off that way. The children begin negotiating for what they want or arguing their point of view at home and with their friends, because they're starting to apply more highly developed thinking skills, advanced language abilities, and increased concentration skills. They believe they're fully competent to understand a situation in its entirety, but they don't realize that they're not yet capable of doing that. And I was just reading that it's super important when this is going on with your child to support children this age means actively listening to their goals and remaining on their side as they achieve them, while simultaneously maintaining necessary limits and boundaries. It's also important, instead of controlling your child, you're guiding him to control himself. That's, we always talk about self-regulation and stuff in this class, and it's just super important because if the child doesn't get that when they're younger, they're going to have huge, huge issues when they're adults. And so some ways to help the child control himself. You give him a small budget, and he can choose clothes that match his style. You can allow him the choice in deciding the family menu, things you're going to eat, and give him power to veto certain activities. So you're letting your child choose, but you're giving him, at the same time, you're controlling him in what he chooses. So it's like, yeah, you can choose what we're going to eat, what you're going to wear, and then he doesn't understand really what you're doing, and he just feels the more power. And I found online this really cool thing, and it said to help your child learn to set like goals. They call it SMART. It's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-orientated goals. And like it was really cool. Like the website, like it just went through this like whole thing of teaching your child how to do it. And I found it on like the Scholastic website, so it was pretty cool. Yeah, so they're just saying it's probably like a super hard time for everyone when that goes down. And yeah, that's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. So the last one is our interviews. So 3 weeks ago, I guess, maybe, was it 3 weeks ago, that we interviewed 2 different people about all the different domains. So I interviewed my mom because she's a school teacher. She teaches 4th grade at a public elementary school. So she had some good insights on kids ages more like 6 to 11, the older group. Let me just pull this up really quick to tell you about it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Were we supposed to base like what we just did right now, our topic? Was that supposed to be based off something from our interviews? Oh, okay, because I totally did. But that's okay. It works still.
I don't think it matters.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So you're good either way.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see here. So my mom just mentioned over and over again a lot of things about hygiene that she's noticed because the kids are just barely starting to like maybe like hit puberty or hit puberty early, and maybe they haven't been taught a lot about hygiene. So she said that some of the kids get teased, like if they stink or if they have a poor physical appearance or if they're not very well taken care of. Another thing she mentioned is a lot of the kids have parents who are divorced or who are not very involved in their education. And so it makes it really hard for them in a lot of ways because they don't have a parent that's caring about their cognitive development and helping them if they're struggling with reading or whatever, or math, and working with them at home so they're not progressing very much in learning if they're having a hard time. And then those kids also, it's hard for them to like make play dates or whatever with other kids because they're going from their grandma's house to their mom's house to their dad's house, and it's just hard for them to have a secure, constant, normal life if they're being tossed around to so many different places, and to have other kids come to their home or play with them or whatever. So she says that makes it hard for them to make friends. And then there was one more thing she said about that, but that was one thing. So maybe her class has a lot of situations like that. Just other funny things, like she says a lot of them are losing teeth still, so their hands are always in their mouth because they want to wiggle their teeth, and that seems to cause them to get sick a lot more often. So I don't know. We always hear the same ones, but I just love a little insight that she had working with these kids every day. Let's see here. She said, I was also surprised that a lot of the kids don't get social cues. So she said just normal kids don't understand sarcasm. So like she's kind of a joker, or she'll make some comment and they won't get it. And they'll take it literally, and that ends up being a problem. So, but I was surprised that 4th graders wouldn't understand those things. So that could cause risks or problems with their social or cognitive development. And then she just felt like, even though she is a teacher, she said the person that's always responsible is the parent first, and they should be aware of their child's needs and their struggles and strengths and everything, and talk to the teacher about them. And of course, as a teacher, if she notices something or whatever, she'll address the parent at parent-teacher conference or something, or email them and say, I've noticed this about your child, and help in whatever way she can. But she feels strongly that the parent is responsible and should provide or at least facilitate the intervention. So get the counselor or the tutor or whoever needs to be involved and work with their child. So yeah, that was my first interview. And then I just interviewed my husband, Dallin, because he's a primary teacher, and I didn't want to have to set up some other big interview. So he didn't have as much insight, more just his whole class is boys. So that is definitely a different dynamic. And they just seem like way more active than girls, or just really busy bodies, and they are easily distracted, and it's hard to stay on topic or some of the issues that he talked about. And so just constantly having something different, or like an activity and then a lesson. Sorry, my baby's crying. But yeah, so those were the two that I did. So somebody else can go.
Very good. Thanks. Okay, I'll go. So the interview that I did with the first age group, I did a 3-year-old. So what are the main risks and problems for your child, like in the physical domain? Wait, this one was the physical one, right?
You're supposed to sum it all up, like give your main highlights of them. So
Okay.
you don't have to go through all the questions, just your main highlights.
Okay. Well, basically, she said, like, for a 3-year-old, I was like, what's your biggest, like, issues you're going through, you know? Like, whether physical or cognitive. She was like, they're always falling down and getting hurt. Like, you have to worry about them bumping into sharp corners. Like, you can't even, like, take your eye off them for 5 seconds, because what if they swallow something and then it's a choking hazard? She's like, you're just constantly stressed out with a 3-year-old. She goes, and not only that, they're hitting themselves, they're scratching themselves. She's like, it's just constantly, you're stressed out, like, that they're gonna be okay. And I was like, I have like a 1.5-year-old, so like I'm already like mind boggled, and it's like I can't even imagine when she's more independent. Like, I'm just gonna have an anxiety attack. But okay. But I asked, like, what, like, were the strengths and stuff, like, out of that, and she said they have a lot of energy, they can run around and have fun all day, and they're able to fall down because they're so close to the floor and they don't get as hurt as if we were to fall down. She's like, and for a parent, she's young enough to keep up with her toddler right now, but won't be soon. So she was saying, like, parents are stronger than the toddlers, so you can restrain them when you're needed to, but parents are able to sleep less so they can take care of things when the toddler is sleeping. Okay, that was different. Yeah, but she's just saying, like, you don't really want to be like an older parent because you're not going to be able to keep up with the kids. And, like, I have all these friends who are like, we're going to be pushing 30, like, any day now. Like, my husband's well over 30. I was like, you guys are just waiting for this perfect moment to have kids. And I'm exhausted. Like, I can't even imagine how you possibly think you're going to keep up with these children, you know? And it's like, and that's another thing that, like, this lady told me. She's like, you better make sure that, like, you're healthy, you're going to the gym, you're getting good sleep, you're doing all kinds of things, because that's going to really be important when you're a parent, especially for older parents. And you have to baby-proof a house. So there's just, like, so much stuff having a kid. Oh, my gosh. And then, like, she was saying, like, you need to play off the strengths of both the parent and the child in order to get, like, the most effective results possible. Like, what are your kids' strengths? Like, oh, they love playing in, like, the living room. Okay, well, then block off the dining room so you don't have to worry about baby-proofing that whole area for the time being. So, like, focus on the positive, not the negative. So, yeah, that's what I got.
I can go. It's funny that you mentioned about being a young parent. My husband's parents, his dad and his stepmom are, like, probably well into their 50s, almost pushing 60, and they just adopted 3 little kids. So They're all from the Marshall Islands, so they're pretty well mannered and like really quiet and just kind of like do whatever they're told. So they're really blessed with that. But I wonder how long they're gonna keep up with. They're all boys too, so we'll see what happens with that. But they're brave souls. Anyways, so with my interviews, I interviewed my mom. She has been a Sunday school teacher and she's dealt with kids for a really long time and babysits a lot for my aunt and all her younger kids, so I thought she'd have a lot of good insight. And with her responses, she mentioned that a lot of times the children that she teaches are one of many kids. And so because of this, sometimes it's impossible to keep up with your children, not because you're a bad parent, but just because life is busy. And so sometimes my mom picks up on things that maybe the other parents haven't seen or maybe just have become immune to because they're so busy. But with that, she also said it's not her responsibility to make sure that the child gets that taken care of. I mean, she doesn't want to overstep her bounds and be like, hey, your kid might have an issue with this, because it's not really her place. But she does notice it at times and can tries to do, whenever she's watching them or with them, tries to do the best that she can within the realms that she's given. But she also talked about how nowadays it's really common for a child to have some sort of disorder, especially like a mental disorder. And because of this, your thoughts can go straight to something that something is wrong. So if like your kid doesn't talk as soon as they should, a parent can automatically think they have autism or they're just a lot of those things. So instead of just realizing that maybe this is just a phase or maybe they're a late bloomer, instead of just jumping to conclusions, maybe taking the time to I don't know, do some research on your child, I guess. Maybe watch them for a longer period of time and see how else they develop. But other than that, everything else that you guys said was kind of covered in my interviews too. But those are just a couple of things that stood out to me that I noticed.
I can go next. So I focus more on the age range between 2 to 5. For me, I talked to my mom. She works at a school and she works with kindergartners, and then I talked to another parent that at my work who has a 4-year-old as well. So some of the kind of things that I noticed or that they talked about a lot was just kind of how a little bit kind of like what you guys had mentioned, that there's so much going on in today's world where, you know, sometimes it's hard to kind of notice that your child is a little bit more quiet than normal, or you know, little things like that, that your child is changing, or that your child may be different than another child, unless you necessarily work with kids and you can kind of see like this is what the majority of kids are doing and where your kid kind of fits in those areas. That sometimes it can be hard for parents to know that, oh, my child's behind, or my child's right where they're supposed to be, or things like that. And so she kind of talked about how because life gets kind of so crazy and busy that sometimes, you know, just kind of like you guys said, that the teachers kind of notice these things before the parents do. And depending on the type of situation, I guess, that the teachers are in, it may not be their place to say anything, or, you know, it may be their place to say something depending on what the issue is. But they talked a lot about how most of these things, especially between the ages of 2 to 5, that it is the parents' responsibility, and that they're going to be the best equipped to handle any issues that come along, whether it's something serious, you know, like not reaching developmental milestones in each of those domains, or whether it's something, you know, that is, you know, say that they're not talking a lot, you know, or it's more so maybe it's just that it's their personality, they're just more quiet. Not that they can't talk, but they're just a little bit more quiet, which is kind of what one of the parent that I talked to that I work with, that's kind of how her child is. You know, her child, when she feels like talking, she talks a lot and she's talks very well, but she's a little bit more quiet around other people, you know, and things like that. So a lot of it was just the parents. And so if there is something more seriously wrong, that, you know, we live in a world now where there's so many resources that we have in order to get our child the help that they need, whether it's medical or you're taking your child to some sort of therapist or someone that can help them work through the risks or problems that they may be having. You know, and both my mom and the parent that I talked to was talking about how it's really important to pick up on these things while they are younger, because a lot of them can be fixed or kind of what is the word I'm looking for? Like it makes it easier for them to kind of overcome these problems and get back to the level that all the other kids are on, or like so when they grew up, you wouldn't even know that these kids when they were younger had a speech problem or things like that. Some of the other things they talked about, especially when it comes to them being in charge, I guess, like parents, being the ones who are best equipped to take care of these things, is not only are they in charge of doing these things, but a lot of the parents are having that. People interviewed saying that they've noticed a lot of these parents have a hard time, kind of even making the time to go get their children the help that they need. And my mom has experiences where there's been some of the kids who really needed to be tested, and my mom said the hardest thing for her was that she sees these kids and knows that if they just got the help that they needed, whether it was something small or something big, that that the child, it could really turn the child's whole life situation around. And the hardest thing for her was to not be the one to kind of help them, because she could see that their parents were either too busy or had no clue that it was going on. And so I think when it comes to this, like for a parent's point of view, is taking that time to, kind of sit back and observe your own child and kind of see kind of where they're at, and maybe when you're around other people's kids, do the same thing to kind of see where they're at, just to kind of help you get an idea of where, where other kids are at, and if there is something that doesn't kind of seem right, it doesn't hurt to go in and get it checked out, and make sure you're kind of doing all that you can to kind of get the help that they need. She talked a lot about, because with kids in this age, there's all kinds of emotions and feelings and going on. Every time they fall, it's a big ordeal, whether there's a scratch or not, and to make sure that you take the time to help foster these feelings and help them to learn how to handle them, and teach them about their bodies while they are growing, and so that they can best manage them and things like that. So I think some of the main things that I kind of took from all this was just, as a parent, there is so much going on, and I see it at my job as well, just how busy life is and how crazy it can be for these parents, especially if you have more than one kid. That's 2 or 3 times, the work as you're watching and taking care of all these kids and trying to make sure that each kid is getting the time and attention that they need. But I think the main thing that I kind of took from all this was just kind of make sure you are paying attention. Sometimes I know life gets crazy, but to kind of try to set aside time to make sure you're paying attention to your children, and if there is any things that you see that they may be struggling with, to pay attention to that a little bit more and help them and teach them, sit down with them and work with them on these things. And then if it doesn't seem to really get better, then take them in to get the help that they need, because a lot of times it takes something as simple to kind of get them kind of back on track and stuff. So I think that's kind of summed up some of the main things that I took from my interviews.
I think I'm the last one. Honestly, you guys touched on most of what I brought from the interview, which is kind of awesome. So maybe I'll just hit a couple key points. So I talked with my sister. She's a dietitian. Like I said, she works for WIC, and so she interacts with a lot of different age groups and things like that. And so she, of course, talked a lot about nutrition, that people just don't know how to eat, and they don't understand that what they're eating makes them happy. She sees a lot of diabetes and things like depression just because they're not eating good, they're not taking care of their bodies, and so she sees a lot of that, even with kids, so she sees that a lot. Also, she talked about just new situations with the kids, because they're always growing and learning, and things to look out for. With, like I said, she's one with a daughter with anxiety, so learning new things and different situations, because at each age and each grade level they move on to and things like that. There's always something new that they need to learn, but to take the time to help them with those. She also talked a lot about screen time, and I feel like that is a huge problem. And I've seen it even just a little bit with my kids and those that I've been around. I mean, I'm a primary teacher too, so I see it all the time. They are too glued to their screens, and they don't know how to play. They don't know how to interact with people. So they don't have social skills anymore, because they text and I'm even talking about 6 to 11-year-olds. Like, they have cell phones, and it's crazy that they do this. So she talked a lot about that. Talked about hygiene, which has already been touched on, but that's always a big. They don't know that they smell bad, so the parents have to intervene there and tell them. Sorry, my daughter's going to say hi too. Hi, Benjamin. Say hi. She's supposed to be in bed. So yeah, but that's just, she just kind of touched on all those things and a lot of what you guys already talked about. Just in that age range, there's just a lot of changes and a lot of new things, especially getting towards the older age, like the 11-year-olds and stuff, preparing them for puberty and things like that. That there's just so many things that parents need to be on the lookout for. Not even the main things, like the disorders and things like that. It's just the everyday life that they have to watch out for and be aware of the things that they're going to do in that area too. So, that's mine.
Awesome. Okay, so now we're supposed to summarize the common elements of intervention that we saw among all domains. So if anybody has any thoughts about intervention that we all talked about.
I think the common thing that I saw is that the parents are responsible for the most part. That we need to be aware of our child's strengths and their weaknesses and where they need to improve, and really we're the ones that see them grow from start to finish, and so we can't really put that responsibility on anybody else because nobody will really understand. Sometimes children are quieter in front of other adults, and so they don't get the full story, but as parents we get the full story, and so I think that's a common thing that we saw in all of them, is that it's mostly the parents' responsibility.
I agree with that. And I think another one that I kind of been noticing too is that I think that it was just kind of like that the parents need to make sure they kind of sit down with their kid in a calm manner and kind of calm and collected, and be able to sit with your kids and kind of take the time that they need in order to kind of help them in each domain that they may be struggling with, and to kind of help them get the help that they need. But we should kind of like pay attention, kind of help them work through the problems themselves and be able to, so that when they get older they can handle a lot of these things themselves as well. So that's kind of one of the things that stuck out to me.
I think too, just intervening early is a common, like finding out about the problem and then making a change or whatever, addressing it however needs be, is really important, because I think a lot of us have said even if they have an issue or problem, it's not the end of the world, because they can overcome it, and in a few years people wouldn't even know. So just the early intervention, I think, is important. Does anybody else have any other thoughts? Common elements? No? Okay. And then what about our best insights on fostering optimum development in children?
I think a lot of this is repetitive. Just,
yeah.
Start to say the same things over and over. I don't know, like what I have been saying. I just think parents just need to, take the time and do their best on helping their kids overcome their problems. Sit down, talk to them about what's going on, and kind of talk through it with them so that they learn how to talk through things, and so that when there is an issue, that hopefully in the future they will come to you and talk to you, so you once again can work through things together, so that as they do get older they can start to handle their own problems and not have to throw fits or kind of go crazy because they've never been taught how to handle problems, whether there are any of these domains or any sort of problems with friends, family, whatever, that they will can learn how to handle and work through any problem instead of feeling like it is the end of the world. So it's just kind of another repetitive of what we've already talked about.
I also think that an important factor in a lot of the resources and things that talk a lot about screenings and education for teachers and primary teachers. I think it's just good to know about things so that when you are someone that is around kids, that you can be another person that has eyes and ears out for these children and watching out for them so that you can see if something is happening too. You know, I mean, there's always, like, my parents were both elementary school teachers, and they had to take classes all the time on these things, especially when they started understanding autism more and things like that. But they were shown the signs to watch out for and what to do, and even medical issues and things like that. Like, my mom had a little boy in her class that had diabetes, and she didn't know anything about it. And so I think it's just important to always just be educated about what the risk factors can be for no matter who you are. As if you're working with children, that everyone should just be educated and know what signs to look for.
I think also just like coming together as a family, I think a lot of times when you deal with issues and there's other siblings involved, it's not just that maybe one child is angry and that they're the only child that's affected by it. Everyone else is affected. So I think coming together as a family and addressing issues like that and having family council and things like that can really help foster optimum development. And also it helps siblings come together and helping them reach their goals, and so they're able to help out one another if they know, hey, maybe you're struggling with this type of things. So another repetitive thing, like Chelsea said.
I think along with that is just being positive about whatever it was. I saw that a lot with obesity, is just not making the child feel bad about whatever the issue is, and just addressing it in a way that is positive, and yeah, working together as a family. So that's great. Good job. Okay, so the last thing we're supposed to do is just summarize our whole meeting in 2 minutes. It's 8:14, so we have like 4 more minutes left. I don't know if you want to talk for 2 minutes and then do that, or just someone wants to do the summary. It's about 2 minutes long, and then we can be done. Or I can do the summary. I can do it, I guess. Okay, so first we talked about the physical and cognitive domain interventions and the slideshow presentations that we made this past week. And all of us worked with childhood obesity and found similar techniques for intervention. Some of the ones were eating healthy, making freezer meals, working together as a family to exercise. Let's see here. Then we talked about social and emotional research and the different articles that we found this week on whatever our choice of the social problem was. So some of the ones were anger and learning to communicate our emotions, increasing in emotional intelligence and learning to express ourselves. Someone else also talked about low self-esteem and how it's important when kids get frustrated that we can help them become motivated and allow them to be challenged, but also make sure it's not too difficult so that they can be successful and increase in their confidence. And then we also talked about rewarding children for genuine accomplishments and real progression rather than just always complimenting them on the little things that they continually do. And then another group member talked about anxiety and helping kids, again, understand why they are feeling worried or whatever emotion they're having, talking about it, possibly attending a therapy group or talking to people their age can also be beneficial. And we all summarized our interviews and found similarities on intervention that different parents and teachers talked about. Let's see, we talked about hygiene and how it's important to intervene early with any issue. And being positive and working together as a family are all good things. And being educated no matter who we are so that we can help the children around us. And I think that's about it. So hopefully we can all help kids with their problems. Does anyone have anything else that they want to share? Or
I think that was great, and we did such a good job.
okay.
And we timed it really well too.
Yeah, totally. Well,